You're now tuned in to the cold, hard truth. Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips@CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
here, actually. Here we go. There we are. There I am. And I've got on my specs, which, like I said, for the most part, I don't really need for the computer. I think that's because the computer screens are kind of big. But sometimes I do put them on, and I'm trying to see. It's probably a little, just a smidgen clearer, I guess. I don't really feel like I miss it if I don't have it on. Yeah, it's about the same. You know, when you go and you do your test, they're like this one or that one, this one or that one. So it's kind of like that with these right here. More or less, it's the same from where I am sitting. So good morning. I see someone trying to call me. Just remember that at this hour, I'm actually on air. Leroy, where are you? I've not seen you in a minute. Thank you so much for tuning in. As you guys can see, I'm doing a little bit of multitasking here, which they do not recommend. It is never a good thing because it doesn't work. You think you can multitask well. You can multitask if it's required, but the truth is not particularly well. We have to really be cognizant of the fact that the brain can only process so many things at a time, and something has to give when the brain is focused on more than one thing. And there is such a thing as mindfulness, where you do want to be entirely present. So there's that. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Miss Beulah. Hello, Siobhan. Catherine is watching. So I do want to show you guys this video. It was in heavy circulation, and I'm sure that you might have seen it already. And a lot of people sent it to me saying, hey, is this legit? Is this real? And I don't know who would even take the time to make something like this up. But lo and behold, I think it actually is a completely made up video. I think someone took clips from other things and put them together and changed the date on them. Why? People are so idle, folks. But let's take a look at it and dissect why I think this is actually not a bona fide video that we should be trusting. And, you know, that's why I like to go to the source. The National Hurricane Center would have anything up that we need to be worried about. So I'm just going to give it 1 second to load. And I've been getting tons and tons of questions about someone's house was burgled. My apologies. They're trying to get in contact with me. Yes, we've been getting lots and lots of questions about whether or not this system is actually legit. Now, initially, I thought, well, seriously, who is going to waste the time to put this together to just scare the entire Caribbean, scare all of the Cayman Islands? But it seems as though people are indeed quite idle, and it is what it is. Let's just have a quick look at the video, and then we'll come back and discuss it.
Overall model guidance and kind of show you what I'm looking at by the 21st, where they say there's a high chance of a tropical storm available. I do think Epsilon will be named by then. It's only a minimal tropical storm. This is by the 21st, but you can see just 24 hours later, it deepens another 13, 15 millibars down to almost a hurricane by then, by the 22nd. This would be approaching Jamaica, but look at this. Just one more day and it explodes potentially to a major hurricane by then, and this would be over the island of Jamaica, raking in the northwest quadrant. So this is the area of concern. If you live in Jamaica, if you live in the Cayman Islands, the Grand Cayman Islands, in Cuba, and South Florida, you need to be on the lookout of this storm by the middle of next week, by the end of next week, of impacting your area. So if we take a look, kind of expand the view to the very next day, this even deepens even further down to a 943 millibar. And this would be a category 4 hurricane if this were to come to fruition, and basically taking over all over the island of Jamaica, going into Cuba. And if we take it out another frame, this would even deepen even further down to a 938 millibars. So definitely, and this guidance has been pretty consistent the last several days of something big coming out of the Caribbean, and conditions are extremely favorable for once this thing gets going. It's going to ramp up in a big way. So that's why I wanted to get this headline out there now, so you have plenty advanced warning, so you know what to prepare and what to look for. I always at this point kind of expect the worst and hope for the best. That's what I always kind of give it a guidance. So I wanted to give you ample warning of this storm. So if you
So people were sending that around, and I want you guys to look at something very, very closely that happens at numerous times in the video. It looks like every time he clicks on like the map, the first thing that happens is the date changes. Watch it again. Watch it really carefully. Look at the top right-hand corner.
Model guidance and kind of show you what I'm looking at. By the 21st, where they show there's a high chance of a tropical storm development.
Okay, so you see how the date goes from
it's only
October 21st,
storm. This is by the
2020, which obviously is in the future.
24 hours later, it deepens another 13, 15 millibars.
And then we go to October 22nd, because he's talking about 24 hours later.
This would be approaching Jamaica, but look at this. Just one more day, and
so this is
potentially to a major hurricane by then, and this would be over the island of Jamaica, winking in the northwest quadrant. So this is the area.
So this is an entire week away, about a system that appears to almost be right on top of us. And I can tell you from the National Hurricane Center, there's nothing like that going on. There's like one little low pressure area. Let me just get an update this morning so that we can see exactly what they have going on in case anything has changed overnight, because I've not looked at this already for the morning. But as of last night, there wasn't any such system present. So I don't know where that video came from. I did go to that same weather website, and I honestly could not even find that video. So I don't know, like I said, if that was like an old video that was in 2020, and then someone thought it would be cute to take it and change it to 2020. But obviously it's speaking to a point in the future. So as of 44 minutes ago, the weather systems out there, there's a broad area of non-tropical low pressure located over the Atlantic Ocean. So we're not worried about that. An additional gradual tropical or subtropical development of that is possible. In the Caribbean Sea, they're expecting something maybe to form early next week in the southwestern Caribbean Sea, with some gradual developing of that system. But as of right now, we're looking pretty good. Now, there is a system. I think some of you were like, well, there is kind of a system out there, and I'll show you this one. But I think that what this is, there's no way that could have been the topic of conversation in that video. I mean, this dude is talking about a category 4 storm. No clue where that could be, because there is nothing out there, as you can see, that is even close to being, developing into anything yet. So you would not be having a discourse about a category 4 storm at this particular point. So it's a peculiar video. It's from tropicaltidbits.com. And of course, we've never heard of them. We don't know who they are. I did have a look at their website. And they look like a legit website. And they do have, I guess occasional videos that they do, but I don't see anything at all on their website. Their map is relatively clear. It was done at October 16th at 12:35 Z. And they showed that was overnight, I think. And they showed a picture of pretty much the tropics. No real activity going on. They haven't posted anything on their Twitter feed since October the 13th. And they were talking about 93L, which is the same one I think that was in that video. And they said that it was on the edge of qualifying as a tropical depression. And regardless of whether or not it does, it'll bring a lot of rain, gusty showers to the Leeward Islands on Wednesday and Thursday. So obviously we are now into Friday and we've heard nothing about that system. So what I would advise then is that we discard that. Like I said, I do not know exactly where that video is from. I think I might reach out to this guy, this website, and see if they're even aware that this video is in circulation. Because sometimes they're not the source, somebody else has taken a video and doctored it and pieced it together. And they have no clue that that's going on. So let me just send a quick message to them, advising them that this video is out there, because who knows, they might actually want to do something like issue some sort of a corrective statement. Now, naturally, this makes sense as to why the government does say, and everybody says, you've got to be careful where you get your news from. And no one ever says not to be careful where you get your news from. I just think that, some things are a bit more obvious to spot than others. This one wasn't entirely obvious. Most people don't really make up fake news on the weather, but there you have it. This seems to be an exception. So I think it's fair to say that that is not a system that we need to concern ourselves with, or we need to worry about. I'm just trying to see if I can, again, I'm just going to share this with them so that they can have an idea of what this is all about. All right, good folks. So someone here says fear mongering. Yes, I guess some people get their kicks off of that sort of thing. Did you guys know that there are still some people who are taking advantage of the emergency pension withdrawal? So if you have not made a decision or you're still thinking about it, let me assure you that you've got until the end of the month. So you've got about 2 weeks left, folks. If you intend to do it, by all means, get on it because time is running out. Time is of the essence. You don't have much time left. So good morning to Catherine. Good morning, Walton. Mr. Walton, it's so good to see you. Louis, thank you so much. Louis says, I'm here and present in attendance. Good morning to Andy. Yes, Irvelyn, I don't know if it's quite a conspiracy theorist, but I agree with Nancy. Someone is playing a trick on us, fear-mongering. Miss Ethel is here. Miss Ethel, we've missed you. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's lovely to see you joining. Poochie French is in the house. Miss Andrea is also present. I feel like I'm taking attendance this morning. Who else is present? Somerset Grant, good morning to you, beautiful. And Michael LeMay. Michael says it'd be nice to hear from our official meteorologist. I know our systems were down. Well, speaking of official meteorologists, I guess we have one, but we don't really hear a whole lot from them. But they do issue on a daily basis the weather updates. Let me see if we've received any weather reports as of today. So nothing yet. Nothing yet. My last email was 4:45 a.m. But yesterday's email from the weather folks, let me just see what they had to say. Weather forecast: isolated showers with light winds and seas are expected to continue across the Cayman area for the next 24 hours due to a weak pressure gradient across the Northwest Caribbean. Radar images show isolated showers over the Cayman area, which are moving towards the west. The forecast for tonight, which would have been last night, partly cloudy skies, 30% chance of showers. And I think it did indeed rain in parts of the Cayman Islands. Temperatures to fall in the mid 70s, and winds will be east to northeast 5 to 10 knots. Seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. Tomorrow, which would be today, partly cloudy skies, 30% chance of showers and possible thunder. Temperatures are going to rise to the low 90s with a heat index of 103 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds will be northeast 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. I feel like I'm the weather girl right now. Tides, high tide is going to be at 8:12 p.m. No, my apologies. That was for last night. Today, the high tide will be at 8. What kind of time is this? 8:0748 p.m. Okay. Almost 9 p.m., I guess. It says 8:0748. Maybe they put an unwarranted 7 in there. So let's assume that it's supposed to be 8:48 p.m. because otherwise it makes no sense. Low tide is at 3:10 p.m. and they have 2 high tides and low tides. So they have 2:43 a.m. for low and high at 9:07 a.m. And then they have another low at 3:10 p.m. and high at 8:48 p.m. Sunset 6:01. It's amazing how they can be so precise. How do they know it's going to be 6:01 p.m. and not 6 o'clock p.m.? Sunrise was at 6:21 a.m. Not 6:20, but 6:21. And then tomorrow, and again, this up to, why would they tell us sunrise, sunset, and then for today, they only have the sunset at 6 p.m. So, okay. Outlook is for similar weather during Saturday through to Saturday evening. So that's what it is. So nothing of interest to watch in the tropics, I would say. So yesterday was a super interesting day, folks. I told you guys I was actually having quite a busy day. Good morning to Janelle. Hey, girl. Good morning, Miss Janet. Oh, Aliano, congratulations. He put his in with good old Fidelity. I don't even get me started, Aliano. I will pray for you because that's all we can do right now. Good morning, Mr. Lester. Thank you for tuning in. Yes. Morning is like, don't worry about the weather. She'll do the old Caymanian method. Look out the window. Look at the sky. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a good day. Not to worry. So I must say that yesterday was quite a busy day. So I told you guys that I had a number of appointments and stuff, but you know, my physio appointment, I ended up canceling because I was in the middle of writing and reading for a piece that I had put up. And I want to discuss that with you guys a little bit this morning. That when you're putting together, especially when you're looking at anything legal, you kind of have to really focus on what it is that you're doing. And it is easy to lose focus. Let me just bring up something here. It is easy to forget, where you're at if you're not really paying attention. And because you don't want to get these things wrong in terms of the information, it takes a minute. So on, I want to say Monday, possibly, or it might have been Friday, we got served some documents from someone, a local law firm. And, to be quite frank, we get documents all the time. And so I thought, what is this about now? I wasn't aware of any pending lawsuits because, the law firms would deal with like civil things. I haven't heard any complaints lately. So I was kind of taken aback, thinking to myself, what could this be now? So anyway, got the documents and opened it up, and it's from Australia, of all places. I'm thinking, Australia? Who the heck could we have offended in Australia? Well, when I saw the name Simon Courtney, I said, oh, right. This is interesting. So do you guys remember this lawyer? Let me pull up his photo because we don't want to forget him. He's a bit unforgettable. This was a case a number of years back where this guy hit some elderly people. And in case, if you forget the details of the case, this guy's a real piece of work. He was a corporate lawyer here in the Cayman Islands. He worked for a variety of different law firms based on what I could see, including Campbell's. He was at Four Hair or something they're called, and some other law firm. So he was here at a couple different law firms. And so this guy hit an elderly couple on a, I forget what, it might have been a Sunday. Oh gosh, I'd have to go back and look at all the details. But the bottom line is he hit them, he injured them quite severely to the point where they may not fully recover given their age and the extent of their injuries. And he was convicted and the media covered it. Now, I noticed that we didn't actually cover any of the preceding stories. I'm not really quite sure. Well, CMR wasn't around actually when the first bit happened, right? So it happened, I think, in January of 2015. We were not around at that time. We came around in 2017. So the only thing that we wrote about him is the fact that in 2017, he was finished with his 3-year sentence. So of course, you serve 60% and then you're eligible for parole. So he served his 3-year sentence and then he was deported from the Cayman Islands. So we basically covered the deportation hearing on this guy. And this incident happened the original incident happened in 2015. So let's talk about what a piece of work this dude is and why he's suing all media houses in the Cayman Islands. So he did appeal to the Court of Appeal and he lost that case. I'm just trying to see if I can pull up the details of his original hearing. So he was found guilty driving his souped up Mustang near the Ritz-Carlton. And he was found guilty of, because he actually left the scene of the accident, they could never prove that he was drunk. So they couldn't charge him with that because he turned up, I think, the following morning to the police station. And by then, whatever was in his system would have had the whole of the night to come out of his system. So he shows up The Compass carried stories on it. Cayman News Service carried stories on it. So this is what Cayman News Service article said. This is back in, what's the date on this one? 2016, July of 2016. It says here that the judge said Courtney had been convicted on the clearest possible evidence. Kathy and Richard Schubert suffered dreadful injuries. Justice Swift said, and it was unfortunate that he wasn't facing even more serious charges. So even the judge was like, the charges should have been more serious, but you know, the BPP. So anyway, this article says that Courtney mowed down the Schuberts after a champagne brunch at the Ritz-Carlton Grand Cayman in January of last year in a souped-up Ford Mustang and then fled the scene. The judge said that he had no doubt that Courtney would have fled the scene had the collision happened in a more remote part of the island. And this was what the judge was quoted to say. I dread to think of the consequences for them, he said, had there been no witnesses and people to help, as he suspected Richard Schubert would have succumbed to his injuries. Imagine, the judge is saying he thinks this guy would have died. Your first thought was not of your victims, but for your driver's license, the judge stated as he questioned the claims Courtney had made at trial, that he fled the scene to call for help. So he claimed, and by the way, the judge found that he lied on multiple occasions throughout his trial. So this was one of the things, now that it's all coming back to me, that he claimed happened, is that he fled to call for help. Now listen, folks, this is the Cayman Islands. Everybody's got a cell phone, or you hit someone on a major intersection like West Bay Road. People have phones. Businesses, surrounding businesses have phones. There would be no reason for you to flee the scene until the following morning, claiming that you're calling for help. The dude is just a straight up liar, is what the judge found, right? Justice Swift described Courtney's claims as a wicked lie, in quotes, and the brief expressions of sorrow are disingenuous. He also condemned Courtney for claiming at trial that he had sustained a concussion in the accident with no medical evidence to support it. Then going on to claim in a social inquiry report made after his conviction that he had a brain injury, again with no evidence to support the claim. So this guy is a real piece of work. Now listen, I don't know if he had a brain injury because of this, or if he's just a narcissist, or if he's just a disgusting person. But this will play into why he's now suing us. He sued his ex-wife. He's suing all sorts of people. Interestingly enough, he had not too long gotten married when all of this happened. So you could imagine what his poor wife was thinking at the time. She's like, let me get the hell out of here. So he did a real number on these people. The case was followed quite heavily by the local media. I know that Cayman News Service did a series of articles throughout the trial, as well as when he appealed it to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal basically said that his case had no merit. The judge said witnesses had heard Courtney gunning his engine, so in other words, revving it up and accelerating harshly before he lost control. Justice Swift said he believed that such a car required 100% concentration, even for a sober driver, but he lost traction on the slippery surface because of his inability to control the car. Instead of stopping, he continued to drive, and the inevitable happened. So the roads were wet. He claims that he wasn't impaired. Obviously, no one will be able to speak to that because, like I said, he left the scene of the accident. So Justice Swift noted Courtney's persistent lies throughout the case, which were repeated under oath and to social workers ahead of sentencing, indicating that he was still in denial about what happened and the continuing efforts to evade the consequences at every turn. So they talked about one of the victims, how their lives have been turned upside down. The male victim, Richard Schubert, was in constant pain, and he will be in constant pain for the rest of his life. Justice Swift said, yes, your actions have destroyed your own life and career, but that was nothing compared to what it had done to the Schuberts. and that he should now bear the consequences of his actions. So they convicted him of inflicting grievous bodily harm and reckless driving, and he was sentenced based on UK guidelines to 3 years. He also had another case that was in summary court for an offense that took place from 2011. Now, I remember this part of the situation because at the time, the judge said, why was this unresolved DUI from some 4 years before, from 2011 to 2015? Why was this not dealt with? Because had Mr. Courtney been dealt with on that DUI, he would have lost his license. He would not have been driving that day had he been following the law, which is questionable. He doesn't seem to have the character of a man who really believes in following the law. But, you know, there's a good possibility that he would have not even been on the road that day in order to run into this elderly couple. So what a sad situation. About last year, I heard, and Sai, I'm not sure, I'll see if I can find out anything on this couple, but I don't know that we actually would know what happened to them. We can try Googling them because Google has everything, including death announcements. So I don't know where the people are from, so it might be a little bit challenging to kind of find them. Let me see if I can do it this way. So Kathy and Richard Schubert, the elderly man, Richard was 71 years old and his wife was 68. Gosh, they might even be dead by now, to be honest. Yeah, I don't really know what has happened to them. It would be interesting to know. But yeah, so this guy apparently decides to sue every single media house in the Cayman Islands that talked about him or mentioned his story. Now, I have not seen those documents because I was not a party to that lawsuit. However, let me tell you what he decided to do, which is quite interesting. So I knew that he was suing the other media houses. I had spoken to one of them. Basically, they were going to like issue a quick defense. They felt like the entire case was frivolous and had no merit to it. So they weren't going to even engage a lawyer. They weren't going to spend a whole lot of time or money in this situation. They're like, you know, the big boys that are being sued is the Compass. And obviously the Compass has the resources to hire a lawyer. Now, ironically, the Compass is actually owned by a partner in a law firm. So he will no doubt have the resources that he can put behind that to deal with that immediately. So, you know, this lawsuit got started. I haven't heard anything about it. And then all of a sudden this week, I got served these documents. I'm thinking, okay, what is this? It looks like he's trying to get me to attend a hearing in December, in early December, where the judge will make a decision on whether or not I'm added to the lawsuit. So 10 months after he files this lawsuit, he decides to, not 10 months after I think it's 10 months after he discovered our article, he decides to then try to add CMR to the lawsuit. So basically what happened was CMR did an article in April of 2019 about the fact that he was done with his sentence and he was being deported. And in the title, we said hit and run lawyer, because that's what he'd been referred to the entire time, deported. And then it was just a brief story, and I'll show you guys the link here, about his deportation and, you know, a little bit about his trial, the fact that he had appealed, all very factual. So it appears that I'm confused because I see his affidavit and I don't see anything of substance actually in his complaint, in his affidavit. Like it's basically just 6 points. But I then had to backtrack and I found out that apparently this guy, a real piece of work, was trying to get us adjoined or added on to the lawsuit without our knowledge even. So there are procedures to follow, right? So there's like in some countries, it's a civil procedure code. In the Cayman Islands, it's called the Grand Court Rules. And I don't know what it is in Australia. I think it's something procedure code. But the rules that it's Uniform Civil Procedure Rules, right? 1999. And the rules that you have to follow depending on the type of lawsuit or the type of action. You know, when you serve a document, this is how you serve it. This is what constitutes proper service. This is how many days the person has to respond, to file a defense, all of these things. So this guy was trying to circumvent, because when you're outside of the jurisdiction, first of all, there's always a question of if you're suing someone outside of your jurisdiction, do you even have the legal standing to do that, right? And it's a bit unusual for a court in another jurisdiction to allow an individual to sue someone in another court's jurisdiction. That makes any sense. So he's in Queensland, Australia, apparently, Brisbane, and he's trying to sue us in the Australian courts instead of the Cayman Islands courts, which the offenses he alleged to have taken place took place in the Cayman Islands court. So it seems like the more appropriate legal venue would be in the Cayman Islands court. Not to mention that all of the defendants, so he's suing the Compass. Let me just see if I can pull up the documents here. I had them last night. I was actually using them to have a discussion in the class that I was a guest lecturer for. And so he is suing Cayman Compass, Pinnacle Media, Brent Fuller, who used to work for the Compass. Mind you, Brent Fuller hasn't worked for the Compass now for years, but because he wrote the story, he's added him on. He's got Cayman News Service, Wendy Ledger, Nicola Watson. They're both owners of Cayman News Service. He has iNews Cayman, because I guess iNews must have covered something on it, and Colin Wilson, who owns iNews. So at this time, we're not listed on the documents. But what he was trying to do, apparently, earlier this year, is he was trying to get us added on without actually even serving us the documents. So we still haven't seen this lawsuit or whatever it is that he's claiming, right? But we did come across this case, and who knew that Cayman Mall Road was being mentioned in an Australian case. So this is the Supreme Court of Queensland, Australia. And this is March the 27th, 2020. We had no clue. So he filed these documents in February. The judgment was delivered on March the 27th. And Bradley J., so Judge Bradley, Justice Bradley, was the person who dealt with this application, which the file date was 27th of February, 2020. And essentially what he was trying to do is he was trying to get their rule number that deals with service is rule number 70 of their civil procedure code that I was just telling you about, right? And so he was trying to get Cayman Mall Road and myself personally added as the 8th and 9th defendant. The court refused it. So Justice Bradley said no. And so now he has to do it the right way, and he has to apply, notify me, which, like I said, he hasn't done, but I have received these documents from a local law firm, and I was kind of confused at why it was even coming from them. So I still don't really understand that. So technically he's not served me, but I guess he's doing it through the local law firm. I don't know, because they're not the law firm. They're actually representing one of the defendants and not him. So it's a bit peculiar how all of this is panned out. So there's this huge judgment, folks, here in Queensland about him trying to essentially circumvent the rules to get to us in order to join us to this action. And it is a very simple, this hit and run article, I'm going to give you guys a link here. This is a very simple article. There's nothing complicated here about it. And there's certainly nothing factual in it or defamatory. So the judge talks about the origins of the claim in his March judgment. He talks about the fact that this lawyer, tried to appeal the case. He lost the appeal. Apparently, he warned and notified all of the defendants to cease and desist. And let me tell you something. This is what lawyers do. They waste a lot of money sometimes on chasing cases that have no merit. And, the average person doesn't know. Does this case have legal merit? Does it have factual merit? Like, what's the position? A lot of people are like, this is over my head. I don't even know what you're talking about right now, Sandy. This makes no sense. But he warned and notified the first defendant, which, by the way, the first defendant, and this is the Compass. So he says that he warned and notified the first defendant to remove all publications regarding the plaintiff from its website and to cease and desist making further false and defamatory statements. So what I think this guy is trying to do in layman terms, folks, I'm going to break it down for you. This guy is trying to erase his history of what he has done. So he's trying to erase all of the stories that the Compass has written about him and everybody else has written about him. It came on News Service, even the one that we did, because if he's successfully able to do that, then he can get to start afresh. He can probably come back to the Cayman Islands and start working. And everybody's like, oh, Simon Courtney, gee, that name's look familiar. Let's Google it. And when we Google it, nothing comes up because he's magically rewritten history. Well, that's not how it works. You don't get to tell a newspaper to remove all articles that they've written about you, whether or not you think those articles have merit. And so he has started this lawsuit against all local media because he believes now that this is going to erase his history, so to speak. So the Compass did here's an article on May 26th of 2015, attorney in court for causing grievous harm. Attorney's hit and run driving charges mentioned. That was June the 10th. And they would have obviously probably covered more stories than that. So those are the first two that show up in the search window for the Compass. So there are stories here about this man, Simon Christopher Courtney. Okay. There was CCTV footage of the incident. So, I don't really know what to say about this guy, except he appears to be a real piece of work. So after the judge looked at his application now of this year, he said that he found it peculiar. So he's trying to sue them, by the way, for over $5 million in total. So $4.7 million for what he claims is economic loss, $376,000 for general compensatory damages, and another $250,000 for aggravated damages. So August the 27th is when the defenses were filed to his lawsuit. So he commenced proceedings in May of 2019, right? And he, everyone has filed a defense. They've denied everything, obviously. And then he amended his statement of claim in September. So there was a little bit of amending of his documents. And he seems to be saying, this is what the judge has said in this particular situation, that he did not hit and run is the incorrect term for him, that it should be hit and walk. Folks, you just cannot make this stuff up. Like, seriously, you cannot make this stuff up. So the term hit and run is a very general term. You could hit and run a bicycle. You could, it's like a general term. Like, people know when you use the term hit and run, you mean someone who's left the scene of an accident. They weren't physically running. They weren't walking versus running. Like, it doesn't even make any sense what this dude is saying. Like, he is just supposed to be a lawyer. He has no moral compass, apparently. So he went on to list a bunch of things and claims that they are saying all sorts of things about him, including that he's a source of shame for the community. Duh. Of course you're a source of shame. Anybody who does that and leaves the scene of an accident is a source of shame. Like Sai says, he's a damn fool. He goes on then to talk about he's a risk to the community. He's a danger. Like, he lists all these things that people would assume about him if they read these articles. And he then claims that this is damaging to his reputation. I want you guys to tell me what kind of reputation you have as a lawyer after you mow down an elderly couple after a fancy champagne brunch. Seriously. Anyway, he now was seeking to get us signed on or joined on to his application. So or his lawsuit, the judge said, so they quoted her article in this, which is amazing. We're now mentioned in a court decision in Queensland, Australia. So big up to CMR. And the judge goes on to say that the pleadings that the plaintiff, like what he attached, which was just her article. So he said, in the pleading excerpt, the plaintiff does not allege that the news article was published to any person in Queensland or elsewhere in Australia. So he now is talking about, in your application to try to circumvent the rules here, you have done an inadequate job of even putting forth a prima facie case, right? Because there's certain actions that are seen in law as extremely draconian. So in other words, they're heavy-handed, and the judges are not mindful to act in that manner unless there's something of, they're not going to make a decision on the substance of the case, but there has to be a prima facie, like an initial, very low, because prima facie doesn't mean that you're going to win your case or you can prove your case or anything, but there has to be something there, like an arguable case then. And this dude, when he did this with the court, he did not even, according to what this decision says, paragraph 49, nothing is stated about the extent of the publication, right? So now that he's in Australia, one of the things that would allow Australia to potentially have jurisdiction over this is that the offense or the publication took place in their jurisdiction. So I'm not even convinced that Australia is the right court for this. The defendants are in the Cayman Islands. The publications happened here. So that was the first thing that the court said. Then it goes on to say that the publication of defamatory matter to a third party is fundamental to cause of action in defamation. The proposed new defendants, i.e. CMR, are entitled to know the case to be put against them about publication of the news article in this state and the extent of the publication, including where it is an inferential case. And then he does a case citation about that. If the plaintiff, so Mr. Courtney, does not or cannot plead publication in Queensland or in Australia, or the facts from which the inference of publication should be drawn, then the prospects of this action might be assessed accordingly. Simply put, the excerpt is inefficient for this purpose. Really, Mr. Courtney? Where's my jackass button? Because this dude deserves Seriously. He deserves the biggest possible jackass award. The judge could not be more simple. He said, simply put, the excerpt is inefficient for this purpose. Then he goes on to say, since November of 2019, the plaintiffs have been on notice that his amended statement of claim is unsatisfactory in the same respects. And then he quotes what the judge, the Chief Justice in Australia, said on that day. So this dude is suing everybody in Cayman that qualifies as media right now that has written about him. I guess Caymanian Times never covered this case. They don't normally do anything court related anyway. And the Chief Justice of the Australian Supreme Court said the following, and this is a quotation now that the judge is using in this: the plaintiff identify and particularize in the amended statement of claim the names and addresses of third parties he alleges viewed and downloaded the articles published on whatever dates in Queensland and in any of the other states and territories of Australia within 30 days. So the judge is saying to him, the Chief Justice is saying to him, show us who has accessed this article in Australia. Why is this in our jurisdiction, basically, is what they're trying to say. And no further particulars have been filed in accordance with Rule 160. So they're saying that, dude, there are deficiencies in what you are claiming. And he's still not fixed the deficiencies. And instead of fixing the deficiencies, he has now gone as far as trying to add additional parties to a lawsuit that they already are saying have some serious constructional and issues on merit, on legal merit. And then they talk about the position with respect to damages. So he's not even particularized his claim for damages. So apparently there's a lot wrong with his case. We don't have any doubt that the judges in Queensland, Australia have more sense and they can see exactly what this dude is trying to do. So for example, they say there's no exact circumstances in which the loss or damage was suffered, and the basis on which the amount claim has been worked out or estimated. So you're claiming 4.7 million for this and 300,000. Where are you getting that figure from? He's not even said that to the court. Like, this is how I know this is what these damages are. So this dude is special in more ways than one, like, honestly. So then they go on to say, listen, the power of the court to add new parties falls under Rule 69, which provides that the court may order the inclusion of a party. So a person whose presence before the court would be desirable, right, and convenient, just to enable the court to adjudicate effectually and completely in all matters in dispute. And then they talk about what it means, all matters in dispute in the proceeding. So the things that he is alleging, right, of the other publications, they say of the 5 imputations proposed to be alleged against the new parties, only 1 is alleged to have been imputed by any of the other 10 publications. Another is similar, but not identical to an imputation alleged to be conveyed by each of the other publications. So it's like this dude is just making stuff up as he goes along. The 5 imputations he claims that are problem is that he is a hit and run driver. He drove away from the scene of the accident. C, committed the criminal offense in the Cayman Islands of leaving the scene of the accident, actively took steps to avoid detection by the police, and attempted to pervert the course of justice. So these are all the things that he's claiming that we said. Not quite so. So the judge goes on to say that none of these, that list I just read out, other imputations is to be alleged to have been conveyed by the proposed new defendant's article on the 29th of April, 2019. Confused. So in his statement of claim against the other parties, I guess we only have a short list of 5. There are 14 things that he is trying to say that they have done by one or more of the 10 publications. And still, the court is saying that your documents could benefit from clarification. Dude, you need some professional help. So he's claiming he's going to write a further amended claim. I mean, he's really wasting the court's time. It's too bad they can't throw people in court for that. So anyway, it goes on in a little bit more detail. I'm not going to boggle you guys down in this because this is quite legal and legalese, as they say. But, you know, the court basically threw this out. They said, nope, you're not going to get this application. One of the observations that the court did make, as in paragraph 64, it says that there's been some delay in bringing this application, although not a substantial one. The plaintiff has explained that he was not aware of the April 29th, 2019 article at the time that he filed the claim and statement of claim on April the 30th of 2019. So literally shortly after he was deported and off to Australia, because our article was the 29th, his statement of claim and statement was a day after. So the court said this is entirely understandable why he didn't know at that point about the article. However, no explanation is offered for the delay since that time, which has been about 10 months. So he still waited another 10 months and he's not explained to the court why that was. But regardless, the court has said, you're going to have to, if you want to join this person to the proceedings, you will have to service her in the correct way, pursuant to section 69 of the rules. So what he has now done, right? So he didn't want to have to service. He just wanted the court to say, woof, wave her wand, and you're now joined. So the court said no. So what he has now done, it looks like, is he's trying to get a hearing under Rule 25 of their Uniform Civil Procedure Rules to get us to be added to this action. So we've received this notice to defendant served outside the jurisdiction. We have received his affidavit, which, like I said, I've never seen an affidavit for defamation. I've seen a few already. That was this, like folks, let me just show you here. That's it. That's like the substance of his case supposedly against us. It's so stupid. And most of it is just like what he did, background to the proceedings, additional matters complained of. So all he's saying is that the main defamatory publication complained of is hit and run driver or hit and run lawyer. So that's it. He doesn't even say how that allegedly defames him, except I guess he was walking and not running. He says the language complained of in the 29th of April 2019 news article is substantially the same as that used in the publications of the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh defendants. So in other words, he's saying that everybody's saying the same thing about him, and therefore we should all be sued for defamation. Well, like I've said numerous times on this show, anybody can sue once they have the money to get a proceeding started. It's obvious that he's not a trial lawyer and he doesn't have the money to hire one, or he probably can't even find a trial lawyer that would entertain his shenanigans. So I guess as a corporate attorney, he is doing all of these things himself. So Evelyn, he's from Australia, my dear. This is what we import into the Cayman Islands and give high-paying jobs. He's probably a partner in one of those firms too, I bet you. Yep. Court shenanigans. So anyway, if you guys are interested to read the story, we did post it up on our website yesterday. No other media, I think this is kind of weird, but no other media in Cayman even mentioned anything about this lawsuit. But I do know that a lot of times, I've said this before, media houses in Cayman, they do not cover when they are in hot water, perceived hot water. I mean, this isn't hot water at all, trust me. Or, when they are being sued, they don't write anything about it. CMR believes in full disclosure. We put your lives on display in terms of news. And so we feel like, we should be held to the same standards. So this is actually a pretty big case, like in terms of, I am not aware of anyone ever suing pretty much all media in the Cayman Islands. That has never happened before. So this is a landmark case for that reason alone. And also the audacity of this man and what he's trying to claim, I think is, quite interesting. His wife divorced him, and I do see that there was litigation back and forth between the two of them. We will cover that because now that he's on my radar, I would like to know what else this guy has been up to. What other shenanigans has he been up to? So Petra wants to know, is this the same guy who walked away from the accident and slept off his brunch under a tree? No, this lawyer, they don't know where he went. He left completely. He didn't just fall asleep. He left and then showed up, I think, at the police station the following day to say, oh, I might have hit someone. Basically, he was buying himself enough time to sober up, is what people think was going on. It's funny you should ask that, Karen. I believe that in this jurisdiction, he has been stripped of the ability, obviously, to practice law. However, he is back in Australia. And from all indications, it looks like he's probably practicing law there. He is with some office that is a, what's it called? A law and taxation office or something. So it looks like he could very well be practicing law there, my dear. Amazing, right? Cameron, he's a lawyer. I wouldn't hire him to read Dr. Seuss at kindergarten class. The cat is not in the hat. The hat encompasses the cat. Yes, I think he's probably out of his league because he's a corporate lawyer. And listen to me, corporate lawyers do not necessarily know anything about, other types of law. I wonder if this couple actually sued him. I'd be curious to know if they did or not. So now I'm knee deep. Trying to find documentation on this guy to see what else he's been up to, because now, he's opened Pandora's box. So of course, we are super interested in what he's been up to. And trust me, it seems like he is trying to sue any and everybody that he can, which is a real shame. And that poor couple, like I said, we don't even know if they're still alive or what's going on with them. It would be nice if we could certainly find out something about their whereabouts. Yeah, hopefully they did sue him. But, that's not going to, when you're 71 years old and you have that type of injury, like the judge said, that's lifelong then. Whether you live a year, whether you live 10 years, whatever, that will change the quality of your life forever. So you will definitely no longer be in a position of that you were before. And I don't care how good or poor his health was, it will definitely not be the same. Quite unfortunate. I'll try to see if I can find out anything about this situation. The individuals. So I don't know. There's a few people with that name. Like when I Google search it, there are a few people where that name comes up, and I don't really know. I'd have to really do some digging to try to figure out which of he was 71. I wonder if this is him. I do see this person here has died. Hutchinson's Funeral Home. Yeah, I don't know if this would be him. The age sounds about right, but you know, we'd have to really look this one up. So not sure. We're going to see what we can find out, folks, about this. But yeah, this guy is just off the chain. This is so absolutely ridiculous. All right, so all right, good folks. Yes, so that is a hot mess. I don't even. So let's talk about some things that are happening here. So yesterday, again, we attended Dr. Frank's play last night. Basically, I don't know exactly when the play was recorded. It looks like it was a while ago, but he was having like a screening of it and then a discussion on the social issues and social implications of what was contained in the play. So maybe one day we'll invite Dr. Frank on to kind of discuss that a little bit. The attendance, I thought, could have been better for sure. I wish that more people had come out and supported it, but it is what it is. And I think maybe it just shows people's lack of interest in these things now. You guys are interested in other things, apparently. So let us just have a look here at what else we are looking at. And let's see what we can. So yesterday there was a huge announcement, and I am trying to get some government officials to come on the program because I know for a fact that a lot of you have questions about this and how it's going to work. But there have been some changes to how the inbound situation now is going to work as it relates to people coming into the Cayman Islands. It looks like at least going into November. So no new positive cases yesterday out of 361 tests. So that was a bit of good news. Pirates Week is on apparently for, let me give you the dates here so you can mark your calendars if you're interested. So Pirates Week will be happening. There's going to be a one-day event in Cayman Brac on October the 31st, and events in Grand Cayman from the 5th of November through the 11th. Little Cayman will have celebrations from the 13th through the 15th. And there is, we'll put this story up a little bit. There is an events calendar for these events as well. Now, please do not forget that we do have an events calendar on Cayman Mall Road. So if you're a nonprofit organization, a church, a school, even if you're a business, you can list business and nonprofit events on our calendar. So contact us at events@caymanmallroad.com, and we will be more than happy to tell you what the options are in relation to that. So here are some of the key changes. There's quite a few things here, folks. So I want to make sure that people kind of understand what is happening. So as of yesterday, Thursday, October the 15th, inbound travel process to the Cayman Islands has been amended. So travelers can now book their repatriation flights directly with the approved airline carriers. Let me stop there because this merits some degree of explanation. So a lot of you have been saying, Evelyn, my apologies, I do not know. I know that they were backlogged and they were saying that they were trying to get it to the point where it could be maybe a couple weeks. But I don't know how successful they have been in reducing the time for that. So I cannot know. I'll try to find out for you though, and send out something on the WhatsApp. I know you're in the WhatsApp group, so I'll email the commissioner to see what the current turnaround time is for police clearance certificates. So, right. So travelers are now able to book repatriation flights directly with the approved airline. So two things here. We are still, and people are confused by this, these are still repatriation flights. So what is a repatriation flight? What does that mean? That term is being used because we are not open fully to commercial traffic. So when they say repatriation, my apologies, flight, that means that people who are just coming here to maybe hang out and vacation, this isn't quite where we're at yet in the phased reopening process. Sharon is sharing something, Evelyn, that could be of assistance to you. At the moment, the approved carriers list only has 2 carriers on it, so it's easy. Cayman Airways and British Airways. So this part is a little interesting. It says, although travel Cayman approval is still required prior to entering the Cayman Islands, this will remove the requirement for travelers to seek entry approval before purchasing a ticket to fly from La Ceiba, Honduras, Kingston, Jamaica, or Miami, Florida. I'm confused though, because why would you purchase a ticket and not know if you have been granted approval from Travel Cayman? Anybody else confused by that? Because wouldn't you want to know that you have approval first? Because what if you purchase a ticket and you don't get approval? Or they tell you, no, you can't self-quarantine and there's no space in the government quarantine facilities. So that's the first question that I have. And again, we have invited them on the program to see if we can get some of these questions answered. To me, that's just strange. I don't logically understand that. Anybody else baffled by that? So then the press statement goes on to say that the Travel Cayman management team's pivotal role is to ensure that quarantine options are managed in relation to inbound travel and the availability of government, private, and quarantine, this obviously is missing something there, at self-quarantine at residence options. This also determines the supply of monitoring technology to travelers who require them for the safe quarantine protocol. But again, my question remains, if you don't have enough resources, the monitoring technology and so on, or even the ability for people to quarantine at the government facility or private facility, why would you purchase a ticket? They have gone on to say that applications will be prioritized weekly based on the coming week's number of travelers and flight clearances. Okay, so again, purchasing a ticket beforehand makes sense. How? The public are asked not to call or email unless they are traveling to the Cayman Islands in October. And travelers to the Cayman Islands in October need not reapply. So the premier did say last week at the press briefing that October was already full. So now I don't know why you'd call or email and then they're telling you not to reapply, but maybe people are trying to follow up on, I don't know if they're backlogged or what's going on here. It gets a little bit confusing. So it then says that some airlines are offering flights to the Cayman Islands and accepting future bookings, but only Cayman Airways and British Airways have permission to offer repatriation flights for approved travel. And we don't know how long this is going to last. So I don't know why any airline, knowing the uncertainty of what's happening, would be doing that. It just doesn't seem to make much sense to me. But there you go. Government Travel Time is also launching a new portal. So they say that a new online portal is in development, which will reduce the need to call and email the Travel Cayman team. Well, I don't know how much is going to reduce that, because there are people who are saying to me that they're contacting Travel Time and they are not getting a response. So does this new portal mean that there's no one will respond to you? I'm not sure what that means. That it's going to reduce the need to call them or email them. So they say that it's going to be launched in the coming days, allowing travelers to select quarantine arrangements and submit travel plans online, removing the need for manual responses to every query. Okay. November inbound process. So here's what we know about November. Travelers may book flights directly with Cayman Airways for November. For British Airways, flights are going to be on, there's only apparently 2 approved repatriation flights for November, the 12th and the 26th of November. I'm guessing that December is going to be the same. Now, I had some queries about what will happen in December and whether or not Caymanian students traveling overseas will be able to come home for Christmas. Where are they going to put them? We don't have Margaritaville any longer in the government quarantining facility. We saw what happened with students the last time when they first were trying to come home at the beginning of COVID. Hundreds of students, literally. The government, that was the reason why government had to set up the government quarantining facilities, because students initially, they're like, okay, come home and self-quarantine. Students were not doing that. They were going out that same night to dinner with their parents. So if government was to allow students to come back for Christmas, which in my mind, didn't they just leave last month or the month before? For them to turn around and come back now for a couple weeks, that's a lot of resources. Government would have to go out and purchase more of these devices. I don't know how many devices they have on hand. I mean, there's just so many questions in relation to how that would work. I'm curious to know how you guys feel about this. Do you think university students, and now remember the UK has gone into tight lockdown, in places like the UK or the US or wherever they're at, should they be permitted to return home for a short Christmas vacation, knowing again that this is a repatriation flight situation? Now, I know we would want for our kids to have the opportunity to spend time with family, but there's some serious things to consider here. So there's that. Sue says it's very confusing for everyone. Irvelyn, I see a number of you going back and forth about the backlog. So we will certainly we will certainly find out how backlogged it is. Let me just send that email now. All right. So people are not receiving responses. All right, let us see how quickly the police can get back to us on that note. So email sent, folks. Thank you so much for highlighting this as a problem. We're on it. Flights to Cuba. Give me 1 second, Captain Mark. I'm going to tell you here in a second because Cayman Airways has sent out a flight schedule. So I can tell you in just a second. We've got some junior GT here who's claiming that they've been cured from HPV, from some drug that we know nothing about. Unfortunately, my friend, we don't allow those types of comments on our show. This is not a marketing show, folks. This is not here for you to sell some bush medicine. You need to find better options to do that. So junior GT, you have been blocked from CMR and your comment has been duly deleted. That's my jackass button, folks. Okay. So travelers may apply for quarantine arrangements via the Travel Cayman portal. We'll let you know once that's up. Anyone who's already applied for November is going to be asked to reapply in order to select quarantining options. So if you're planning on coming in November, so don't reapply if you applied in October, because they've actually closed out October anyway, but they're dealing with those applications. So if you've already applied in October, don't bother reapplying. However, if you have applied in November, then you do need to reapply once the new portal is up, okay? Then you have, let me just see what your other options here. These are the following options. So you've got 3 quarantining options. Quarantining at a government-run facility. Now that option is available to Caymanians and those with PR only. So this is interesting because what that means is if you are, remember before they said, okay, if you were a work permit holder, you could come in and quarantine at a government facility. Based on what I'm seeing here, that is no longer an option. So if you're coming in a work permit or any of those other categories that are allowed to apply to come in, the government-run facility is not available to you unless you are a Caymanian or you have permanent residency. Now, the question I have about that is, if you are at a government facility, are they still having you pay for that, or who pays for that? Option number 2, quarantine at a private run hotel. Now, this is a new option. So if you wish to quarantine at any of these facilities, please contact the facility directly. But what facility? What private run hotels? Are these pre-approved facilities? I've got some questions about this private run. Or is there a list somewhere that we don't know anything about? That was another one of my questions. But it says once you've booked Provide travel time with your reservation number to complete the processing of your application. And what protocols do those people have in place at a privately run facility to ensure that you actually are staying put? Who's responsible for you? Is the travel time people actually going to be monitoring the individuals at the private run facility? I don't think so. Because the third option, where it says quarantine at a residence, this now is where the traveler's home or private residence can be considered. And they clarify something here, folks. This cannot be a shared dwelling. What do they mean by that? It cannot be a shared dwelling. So before we heard that it could be a house with other people in it, other members of your household, and you all had to quarantine. I'm assuming that's not what they mean by a shared dwelling. They're meaning like a tenement house, an apartment that you're sharing with somebody else that is not a member of your household. Like, to me, there could be some clarification of what a shared dwelling is. There is no such clarification. So give examples, I think, because in Cayman, there are families that live together, extended family members. Is that considered a shared dwelling? Travelers who agree to the quarantine at residence program must agree to wear, so this is now where you get into the I am safe wristband, COVID testing on arrival at the airport and again on day 15, remain in isolation for a minimum of 14 days, a day 15 negative test, sign off by the medical officer of health, offboarding by the mobile compliance team will be required in order to quarantine, in order for the quarantine period to cease. And that includes an inspection, collection of the wristband, and retrieval of the mobile device. Now, on Monday, I'm going to spend some time going through a little bit of how that process works, because we have someone who has provided us their experience of how they got from the airport into the quarantine at residence situation. But the thing that I have about number 3 is it says that you have to agree to all of these things to the quarantine at residence program, right? Which is fine. But it almost implies that for option 1 and 2, none of that is in place. And I don't think that that's right. I think whoever wrote this, I don't know. Because obviously, if you're at a government facility, you will be tested. And I'm assuming that if you're at a hotel facility, you will be subjected to being tested as well. And is everyone being tested at the beginning at the airport, or is it only the quarantine at residence people? This is where writing, it becomes a little bit fuzzy, in my opinion, in terms of what they are exactly trying to say. So we do have some details then for the November process and how the November process will work. But that's going to take quite a bit of time to go through, and we're kind of running low on time here this morning. So what I want to do is on Monday, I will go through what the December procedures are. And hopefully by then we will actually have some additional information that we can share with you, some points of clarification I think that this article definitely needed. So what we will do, folks, we are going to end a little bit early today because I actually have a Zoom meeting for a class that I'm teaching. So I do have to do that this morning. I'm just checking the messages. There has been a home burglary, and the person has sent some photos of items taken. So we're going to get some additional details on that, and we'll put that up on the website. We do want you guys to please be aware of, someone steals something, it's not theirs. If they're trying to pawn it, if they're trying to sell it to a third party, we want you to be cognizant of that so that we can catch these thieves who take people's hard-earned items, hard-earned money. Oh, Captain Mark, give me 1 second, please. Let me tell you what Cayman Airways said. So Cayman Airways issued a travel update yesterday. And this is through November. So we have flights to Miami, Kingston, and La Ceiba, Honduras. December flights, Miami, Kingston, and Ceiba. January, Miami, Kingston, and Ceiba. Nothing for Cuba. Okay. So it looks like, folks, we are going into January very much with the same flight scheduling. And in particular, not just flight scheduling, but the same repatriation process. So we're not reopening fully, probably well into next year, folks. I mean, the world is surging with COVID. So unfortunately, we got to be realistic about what to expect for inbound traffic as well as outbound traffic, because you can't just jump up and do, they can't technically stop you from traveling, but they're reminding you that travel is supposed to be for like emergency purposes and that sort of thing. So it's still not time to vacation, right? We've got questions, and we are hoping that we can get some answers. So right now, inbound travel is currently limited to, let's remember the categories: Caymanians, permanent residents, work permit holders and their families, persons who own residential property in the Cayman Islands, students with a valid visa to study in the Cayman Islands, and persons with close family ties to residents or work permit holders. So spouses, fiancés, parents, grandparents, and siblings. So it looks like technically those people could come in for visit, but obviously you have to go into some sort of quarantine. I thought I saw something on this about outbound travel, but I don't see it here now. It might have been another press release. So I'm going to just have a look for that and see where that was. So we'll put up the travel itinerary, folks, for Cayman Airways. We will get that up here shortly. I've got to do a Skype meeting, like I said. I hear Coco knocking or scratching on the door already. So she's like, I need to get in now. Like I said, I want to go through what's happening for December, but there is quite a bit of information here. And I believe that if we get some of our questions answered, it might clarify what exactly is happening in December as well. So Cayman Airways reminds you that you need to ensure that you know what you need to have in place if you're traveling to countries like Ceiba and Jamaica and Miami, but more in particular Ceiba and Jamaica. They do have entry requirements. Yes, so Sue says they're not traveling for emergency. They don't have to quarantine by themselves. So yeah, I think outbound travel they cannot control, but ultimately you'll want to be cautious about how you leave the Cayman Islands, because government isn't going to pay for you if you're not in a position to self-quarantine. I don't think that they're going to be encouraging you to jump on a plane and come back a week later after you've had a shopping spree in Miami. That's not likely to happen. So we'll continue to monitor these bits and pieces. So it says here that persons who are neither Caymanians nor permanent residents and do not have a private residence to quarantine in, or whose private residence is not approved, will need to book a private facility for quarantine. And I can tell you those private facilities are running a pretty penny based on what has been shared with me. A real pretty penny. So crazy, huh? All right, good folks, let us leave it there for now. I do see some individuals are sending me some stuff about the legislative proceedings. I'm trying to see what that is exactly. Several people have just sent this to me. I will need to have an opportunity, I think, to probably read that. So let me see what I can figure out about what they are sending me. I think sometimes these people are watching this show and they're like, oh, we'll send it to her. She'll be able to read it. But you do know it actually takes an actual minute to read through this stuff. And if you're intending it to be part of the morning show, you kind of need to send it in advance of like 9 o'clock in the morning kind of thing. So there was a call for, okay, so this is about the legislative proceedings today. Third sitting. This looks like the agenda, the order paper. Let's see what's on here. Presentation of papers and reports. So we have labor and pensions. Oh, labor and pensions. The Department of Labor and Pensions is up this morning, folks. Coco, cut it out. I hear you. I wonder if we're going to hear anything substantial from them in terms of what they're doing about the breaches that have occurred in relation to the emergency pension withdrawals. So Labor and Pension seems to have a lot of reports up. Questions, statements by the Honorable Premier, the Honorable Ministers and members of Cabinet, personal explanations, obituary and other ceremonial speeches. All right, so we've got bills, report on bills, defense bill, registered land bill. So there's a lot of stuff that is on this order paper. I don't think, are they going to get through all that today? There's multiple motions here about freedom of information, development and planning, motion to review pension and employee benefits reform. That is to be moved by Bordentown West and seconded by the Leader of the Opposition. So that is Chris Saunders. So remember the young lady who said yesterday, Mr. Saunders isn't doing anything? Pay attention now, because this is where you need to know what your members of the LA are actually doing. So it's not that they're doing nothing. It's just that maybe you're not aware of what they're doing. Maybe we'll stream some of the proceedings today. I know that you guys often get busy after the show's over, so you may not be able to watch the full thing, but we will stream some of it so that you can tune in. Other private members' motions, we have, again, Chris Saunders is moving one about medical bill claims and one about a motion to increase minimum vacation leave entitlement. Hello? Those are some pretty big motions. Chris Saunders on the ball, folks. So we'll keep a note on those and see where that goes. Anne Marie, good morning to you, my dear. What about people who just buy their homes? What does NIOB, what does that mean? Thank you very much. Who just bought their house down there and they can't get in. Well, if you're a homeowner, you're on that list. So I guess you can apply to come in. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to get in. You just need to apply through the quarantining process. Mickey wants to know about the system developing in South America. We covered this morning that based on what the National Hurricane Center is saying, it looks like things are actually looking pretty clear based on what we can see here. So there's no substantial issues of concern. If you're, oops, sorry, Mickey. If you are talking about that one little area down there in yellow, I don't know yet what that is. So that's less than 40% chance of developing into something, but we'll keep an eye on it for sure. And we will certainly let you guys know if anything happens there. Yeah, sounds wonderful. Folks, please enjoy your weekend. I would love for you guys to be extra cautionary or take extra caution on the roadways as we traverse into the weekend. You know, we got to just be careful on the roads out there, folks. A life loss is a life loss, and we don't need any of those. So thank you, Ms. Sue, for tuning in. She was trying to listen to it, and she said she can't stand to hear the Speaker of the House. And irks. We're going to leave that comment right there and wish you guys a beautiful weekend. Stay safe, my folks. And we'll see you on Monday. Anything breaking happens over the weekend, we'll be bringing it to you right here on Cayman Mall Road.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.